Dol Kim.
That's right. That's me. Hi.
How's your day been, brother?
I'm the problem. It's me. I've been good. It's been an intense week.
Did you just say you're the problem or the prophet?
The problem. It's me.
Oh, okay.
The song. I have I call my staff calls me every now and again, and then I say hello, and then the song rings in my head. So hi, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me.
I don't even know this song, dude.
Okay, that's okay. It's a Taylor Swift.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's why I don't know it.
That's why I don't know it. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on from there. But yeah, I had an intense week. So today was also once again intense, but good to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you, man.
Yeah.
So in terms of who you are and what you do real estate, you do scuba diving, have a scuba diving business.
Yeah.
You have your own podcast shooting. You do your own online content about relevant events and current affairs going on in the world.
Yeah.
And then what was the other thing you do?
Yeah, I set up businesses. I hate the word entrepreneur, but I am one, I guess. I set up businesses, and in that line, I have a couple of medical businesses as well. I invest into real estate too myself.
How'd you get into it? Get into this suite of business?
Yeah, I immigrated into Australia, and that was pretty shaky for our family because it's expensive here, right? It's expensive to immigrate. Full stop.
Where
right?
from?
From Korea. I was originally
North Korea, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. No. South Korea. I was originally born in Sydney, but then as soon as I was born, shipped back to Korea. And then from there, our family immigrated into Adelaide. And then from here, we paved our way to have a business and all the rest of it. But then, we went into some hardships. And because of that, I think the fire started then. Be like, I need to try different things. One of the things
How old were you when that happened?
About 14, 15. And it's not just a financial thing. It's like it's like a relational thing. I didn't know what family friends meant because we had left all of our family friends. And to cultivate new ones, it obviously takes time. My parents were good at English and things like that, but I guess they had a bit of a struggle. And so for me, like the desire to network and to have some influence within a little town and therefore, and have a business and things like that. It really intrigued me. It's not all born out of pain. I think there is something innate in me. I definitely saw my dad do the same thing. He's always very adventurous and wanting to start new things. And he was always very adventurous. My mum, again, is the same type of character. As in
they're all entrepreneurs?
Yeah, they always have been. And the odd fish in my family, I'd say, would be my sister, who just, likes to just coast along and do her thing, which is fine. But, that's a bit of my family background. I finished high school and finished with very good grades.
Well done.
Thank you very much. And then with that, I'm like, I'm going to start tutoring. And then straight out of high school, year one university. I mean, it's the Christmas.
You are fitting the stereotype.
Yeah, and I started tutoring, and then I had so many students, and I started hiring other tutors.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and then I had 100 students in a year. They would do 2-hour sessions every week, paying like $40-50 an hour. And then I was the guy who ran the whole thing. So there was additional demand for me, and then I moved from private tuition to group tuition. And that gets crazy because that's when you have $40-50 an hour per head in a room of 6 kids, which is unbelievable for a 17-year-old. And I ran that for 4 years.
Well done.
Yeah. And then and of course during that time, uni was kind of boring for me because it's not as fast paced as that is.
Yeah, well, you're doing it, right? You're doing the whole purpose of uni when you're doing that.
Yeah. And
when you were doing that, did you given that your family is pretty entrepreneurial, were you going to them constantly for advice and stuff like that, how to do things?
So mum and dad was a little bit missing when I was doing that because of their own problems and issues and whatnot, which I don't want to go into, but it is what it is. And I just had to sort of grope my way into the society and just make things happen. I was quite a bit of a talker, had a bit of a gab throughout high school, I always loved being school captain and, SRC and all the rest of prefect and all that. And I sweep through all of those positions. I really loved doing it. At the beginning, I didn't. But when I find something that I don't like or I'm not particularly good at, I go, I need to conquer that. I need to do that. Like public speaking was just one of those things. And I go, ugh, and I still get nervous and jittery when I have to do public speaking. But those are the times I'm just like, just lean into it and get it done and smash it and do a good job. And that's just how I navigated most difficult things in life, really. And then so with like starting a business and all the rest of it, and that's kind of what excites me, to be honest, to do something that is outside of my comfort zone, and either A, fail it and learn something from it, and B, or conquer it.
Yeah, well,
those are the only two options.
The student stuff that you conquered.
Yeah, and that ran for about 4 years, which was great. And I moved out of home straight out of high school. So I lived in a 3-bedroom place with 2 other housemates, and that was another learning experience as well, which was pretty cool. And then I was like, yeah, enough is enough. My grades were going down the toilet, in law. I studied law and commerce. And I didn't particularly enjoy law very much. Studying it, I barely went to class. I was just scraping a pass. And that never happened to me in my life. I was always getting good grades. But I just didn't see much point like investing my time into the study of law and things like that, because it was so broad. Law teaches, like the study of law teaches you what law ought to be, not how it is practiced or anything like that. You'd go to a property course for, a whole entire semester, and you wouldn't be able to facilitate a property transaction in the real world. Like you'd be asked the question, so how do you buy a property? They'd be like, I don't know. So it was too theoretical and philosophical for me, and there were some subjects that talk about the rule of law and how it ought to be and things like that. And I go, and I genuinely felt stupid. Like I'm too stupid to do this. And there are many things that I feel that way about in my life because, I'm only young and I haven't really conquered many parts of the world as we know it, of course. And then, but then I realized, well, I can't be a tutor for the rest of my life. I can't run this institution for the rest of my life. I thought like life was great. I reckon I could have kept that going and made something big out of it. But at that time, my calling was law, because that's what it said on my transcript. Yeah. And that's all I'd ever believed in, right? So, or known, right? So I went, okay, cool. My grades are down the toilet. And then I really loved Adelaide. I loved Adelaide. So I wanted to stay in Adelaide. But then I started seeing a pattern. Kids who didn't grade well in law went to different cities to work because there's more opportunities out there. Like a lot of people went to Melbourne. Yeah. I saw a batch of kids go to Singapore and Hong Kong and things like that. And I was like, okay, cool. And to be honest, I wasn't really keen on the adventure out of Adelaide because by the time I was 16, I lived in 25 different houses.
That's a lot of moving.
It's a lot of moving.
So then you just wanted a stability in life. Yeah. And you were like, I'm comfortable here. I've made friends. Like life's good.
Yeah. Always craved that, right? And that life, the little that I knew about life as a kid was just like, yeah, you go to uni and then get a job and then, you can have a family and that you just sit still. And we've made it to Australia, so, and I could see that it was a valuable thing just by observing how much effort my parents put into coming here, right? Cost of them their marriage. So I'm like, whoa. So it must be a valuable thing. And, I deemed that as valuable blindly back then. But now I realize that it is a wonderful thing to live in Australia. And so I'm appreciative of that every day almost.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you were saying when we're getting a beer, just like, this is the best country in the world. Yeah. Never leave it. Never leave it. And that's different to everybody like that usually lives here. Right?
Yeah. I mean, so when I deemed that I was too stupid, my grades were too bad, and I felt like I had to be really good to stay here. And that was a trend. A lot of people who did stick around were the ones that scored really well, or their daddies and mummies were something here in this little town. So I thought, okay, my mum and daddy is not a real thing here in this little town. So I have to be the other, which is to be really, really smart. And a bit too late for that. So then I went to China for a year to study how to speak Chinese, because I thought Chinese was a good market to be in, and having a skill like that was going to be an edge I could bring to the Adelaide employers.
Yeah, like being the connector between worlds.
Exactly. And that I was going to be in a job where there's a lot of communication being involved with diverse people. And I identified that as a bit of a market. So I went to China and I really prioritized it, came back with a decent level of Chinese. So, I put in every effort to do it. And then when I was living in, Shanghai for a year, Shanghai is like a place where there's people from all over the world. And so where there's people from all over the world, they all speak so highly of Australia, how much they would love to move there, just from what they see. This was their goal for some of them, and for some of them it was an unattainable goal. It's like if I were to say, "Hey, I want to travel space one day."
Why not?
Why not?
And why
we
not?
can get there.
We're doing it now.
Or live in Mars one day.
Yeah,
right?
let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, why not?
And I love being around these people. But, that's a different discussion of it in itself. But I just come to realize what a privileged place to live in, right? We were talking about it over beer just before as well. Like, but, recent travels I've been to, everyone's just like, dude, like Australia will be such an amazing place to live. And these are people that come from places that we desire as well. Some areas of Europe and Canada and like all these fancy. I'm from France, Spain, like all these fancy places, that we also, want to visit and live there one day. They also want to be in. Maybe it's like a bit of a, hey, grass is greener on the other side kind of syndrome.
I mean, there's definitely that. Because unless you make the grass greener,
but then you start talking
greener somewhere else.
Yeah, but then you start talking about where they're from and where you're from, and then you go, "Well, hang on, yeah, we do have it a lot better."
Yeah, in many ways.
Yeah, because
there's many different places in the world. Hey, Bior, can you turn my headphones up a bit or my sound? I just need a little louder. Cheers, G. Is yours good?
I'm good. Yeah,
yeah, beauty. Yeah, so, okay. And what did you do after? So you went to China after doing all the teaching stuff, and then you came back and you're clearly not doing just a regular 9-to-5 job. So, like, where was the pivot there? What was the false hope that had to crumble for you to do something else?
Yeah, it was another false hope. No, I'm just kidding. Like, it's like, so I came back and I'm just like, okay, knuckle down. Let's, I bought my first property coming back. So,
did you make a bunch of money when you were in China, or this was just residue from the student stuff?
Yeah, so student stuff, and then obviously the Australian government paid me a chunk of money to go to China.
What? Well, as a part of uni?
Yeah. So they're like, "Yo, you're going. Here's 20 Gs, and then here's another, and as part of your HEGS, and then here's another 5 Gs, just because you're going to Asia."
Bet.
So that added onto the whatever. And that was when I came back to Australia, I was 21. That's 9 years ago. And the Adelaide market 9 years ago, with the amount of dosha I had, was digestible. You could buy something. Now it's really expensive.
Yes.
And then I had bought this property just opposite Costco. And then opposite Costco, it went up like crazy high in value. And then I thought, okay, cool, sell. And then bought 2 more properties with it, and then that's how it got started. But then when I did that, when I was going through that, I'm like, making the decision with like parents and stuff and all that, and I moved back in with my mum by that time. And I go, okay, and she's like trying to like think of ways to like put in offers and whatnot, just working together. And I go, okay, cool. We don't know anything about buying property. I'm sorry, I went to law school, but I don't know anything.
Yeah, it's a different ballgame.
Yeah, so I went and got a real estate license, and then Dad within 6 weeks taught me how that entire process works in this country. Made a lot of sense. It wasn't too difficult, but just had to be shown where to go, what to look for. Anyway, so that happened.
So what's to look for?
What to look for?
Yeah.
Just from a contractual side of things, what to look for. And then what to actually look for is then you got to look at the market data and then do the research.
How do you make the decision?
Well, obviously, you got to look at the infrastructure and the gentrification in the area.
Yeah.
Obviously, Costco coming in is a big deal, right? So it's a big shopping precinct, and people are attracted to things like that, and that's a good thing. Yeah, nowadays I look for returns, with high returns on rental income, because obviously the interest rates are quite high. So you can't buy properties on very thin yields anymore. Otherwise, you'll be in trouble.
So what kind of things have the larger yields?
Great question. Low socioeconomic suburbs for residential, and with commercial, and this is really my department nowadays, is you got to value add is the best thing to do it. So either changing the use of it to something that has higher rent per square meter, or you hustling out a good tenant that will pay more for a piece of land or a piece of space that you could develop into.
Yeah, so like turning a warehouse into a medical facility, for example.
Something like that. Or and to find something that matches the capital that you have to be able to spend into it. Some quasi-resi commercial investments I think are pretty good as well. So I see a lot of people building houses, and instead of selling them straight away, they hold on to it. So it's like owning a block of units. And because of the capital that goes in is less, the return that you get, the rental income that you get collectively across multiple properties are actually a lot higher as well, which is really good. And, you know, there's a lot of hacking you can do, even if you're just not a big time commercial investor. Like if you got a big chunk of land out the back of your house, go plonk a granny flat on there. You know, if it costs $100,000 to buy a granny flat, and let's say you borrowed at 7%, that's $7,000 a year you got to pay, which works out to be about $130 a week, right? And then if you can rent that at $250 a week, hey, you're positive. You see that? Thanks. So little things like that. Or if you got a lot of, or if you're somebody that has capacity to buy a $700,000-$800,000 home, but you're just a single person, hey, why not rent out some of your rooms out? It covers your mortgage bills, right? Buying properties now, I think, is a great idea, because if you are buying properties, that means your bank has approved your loan. Yes, mortgage rates are really high, but it's going to go down. And when it does, you just refinance and you'll sit prettier then. Yeah,
but that was actually a question I had in my mind, was with this property that you had near Costco, instead of like selling and then buying the 2 units, why didn't you like refinance, given that it had gone up in value, and then buy more?
You know what's crazy? You know what's crazy? I didn't even know what refinance was by the time I had sold it. Crazy, right?
So no, it's not that crazy. Most people don't.
Yeah, and you know, it's crazy because people, you know what, like in this industry, when I see successful people, they're not successful because they're smart or they knew everything, but simply they took action. So I value action and execution more than the idea. Jack Ma said these famous words. He said, I'd rather work with a tier 3 idea and a tier 1 execution than with a tier 1 idea with a tier 3 execution. Execution has 2 folds: actually doing it and being good at it, right? But you got to realize actually taking the action is half of that execution. So for me, I was just like, yeah, let's do it. And the mentality really is, I got nothing to lose. Like I said, option A is failure and you learn it. And option B is you conquer and you win, right? If you learn, then you're just a step closer to conquering, right? And if you win, hey, you've won, so go party. So like that was the whole like idea of it all. But when I was buying that property, I still had the dream to just become a lawyer, and all the way we go. So I then started hustling out jobs in law, and the only way I knew how to do it was sending in resumes. And then I quickly realized that doesn't work, because that's not how you get jobs here in Adelaide.
Yeah, you got to know people.
You got to know people. So then I just went to events and I just started talking to people, and I just started the bold thing of, hey, let's catch up for 15 minutes. And I really recommend this to people looking for jobs all the time. Know the employer before you even apply. Because why are you applying and wasting your time and you don't even know what they stand for? Go have a chat and say, and the best way to do it is say, hey, listen, I'd love 15 minutes of your time. Coffee's on me. It's $4. Go to McDonald's, get a job, and then afford the $4. It's okay. And then you sit them down, and they will either do this. 1, I don't have any time for you. Go away. Hang up.
And you don't want to work for them.
You don't want to, exactly. So walk away. It's fine. You basically saved yourself so much time. Walk away, right? You've saved yourself.
Yeah, they're probably a dickhead.
Yeah, exactly. And then the next step is they go, all right, cool. I'll spend 15 minutes with you. And here's the thing. You never mistreat young people. How do you know who they're going to be? How do you know who they're going to be?
That's why people treat young people so well, right?
They should.
Yeah.
And if they don't, either be big enough to mistreat people and get away with it, or just treat people well.
But even then, I feel like the bigger cats are always actually the most kind.
Exactly
because right. They're like, well, I'm not competing with anybody because I'm competing with myself.
Exactly right. And the thing is this, and another red flag is, oh, sorry, I don't have any time. I'm just like, dude, you're that successful and you don't have any time?
Yeah, well, they're not free.
Yeah, exactly. Because like if you're just exchanging time with money, right, and you become rich with money but time poor, right, I'm sorry, you're not successful yet. And with those people, you ain't going to learn anything, right? Because all you're going to learn how to do is exactly that, if that's your mentor, right? So, and you know, that's the problem. So, and then I started scouting out some bosses to be. I know that sounds a little cocky, but that's subconsciously what you're doing, isn't it? You obviously still remain humble and you are polite and you respect other people's time and everything else, but you're really asking 15 minutes of the time. And you know what? If somebody did that to me, and I'm not even that successful and crazy, but if somebody did that to me in my little hustles that I do, I would totally respect that little person for doing that, coming out of the shell. Because clicking send on a resume is easy, but walking up to somebody and say, hey, how you going?
Well, it just shows that you're a genuine person. You have the confidence that it takes for them, like even, especially for like a sales position. If you go and do that and you're trying to work in a sales position, you are like tenfold ahead of anybody that's just putting in a resume.
And little do kids know and people know is that we're all salesmen. We're all selling ourselves. Even if you go get a job as an admin's not a very salesy job, but you got to sell to the person that's about to hire you. I'll be a good admin for you.
It's true. It's very true.
And it's the word sales is a wrong label for it. It's persuasion. We're all persuaders in our life. We're persuading to other people that we have a healthy lifestyle so that people don't worry about us, right? The loved ones around us. We're persuading to them with our lifestyle that we're living a good life. How would your mum feel if you were a drug addict and you were hurting yourself every day, right? But if you cared about, obviously, it's all about yourself. I understand that. But the thing is, a part of why we live good lives is because we want to sort of not let our loved ones worry about us all the time. I think that is a small part of it. If that's completely missing, come on, right?
Oh yeah, it's definitely there for me.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to make my parents and my family proud.
Exactly.
And my friends.
Yeah. So and just all of that sort of intertwines together, and we're consistently persuading to ourselves and to everybody that, hey, it's going okay, right? And when we're in trouble, we persuade others to help us, right? When we need something, we persuade others to help us. At the end of the day, we're all salesmen. Here I'm using the word and the term that I don't really like anyway in the first place. But we have to learn how to persuade other people.
Definitely. Well, imagine raising kids. Like this is how I would love to raise my little ones when I have them. Is when they want something, they have to put together like whatever the modern version of a presentation is.
Yeah.
They have to put it together and they got to do a sales pitch for me and they got to convince me of why it is the thing to do or thing to get.
And that is how you teach appreciation and thankfulness. Here's the thing. If you just flick a resume and they just come around, just be like, hey, here is $250,000 a year with a company car and we'd love it for you to work for us. With the job market now, that's kind of how things happen in some job positions, right? But they don't really put much into the job if they're just given something so easily. But as young people, if you're given a job that so easily, employers kind of know that they're not going to treat this job so seriously. So if you work hard for something to achieve it, like your future children, whatever they're given, they're going to cherish it. And I think if you want to cherish your job, right, and guess what? A spoiler alert, employers like employees who cherish their job, right? Then you have to do something more than just pressing a button on Gmail. So it's and that's something that I had learned from that experience. And then, if you lean more into it, I guess you can then, explore the idea of sales and whatever, just find your forte.
Human psychology and all that jazz. So, all right, what's next? What else did you do?
So I was a lawyer for a while. And then I went from and with that, my goal was to experience as many different factions of law as possible.
Yeah.
So I was like in a boutique tax practice once. And then I went to the Crown solicitors, which is like the government lawyers that represent the Queen's interest. And then I went to a barrister's office, and then I went to like a big firm, and then I went to the mid upper firm, and then I went to do some volunteering at the courts, giving free legal advice.
Over how much time that's a lot of different jobs?
Almost 3 years.
Yeah, okay. So it's kind of like 6 months a job?
Yeah. Almost. Some of them were even shorter because I just didn't like it or they didn't like me. And then I realized, no. And I made a very difficult decision to leave. And then what I did was, okay, I need to start figuring out what I truly love to do. Right. And then what I did was I went through my internet history. Right. Now,
porn.
now, I genuinely do this. I genuinely find finding your passion and what you truly love to do is a really, really important thing. Yes. So the way to find out how you truly love what you do, a great place to start, I think, is your internet history. right? Other than the things that are destructive and a waste of time, right? Like porn and things like that. Outside of that, go through your feed. Put it this way, like check. I was blown away by the screen times that some people have, and including mine.
Oh, dude, mine is outrageous. What's yours?
I think I've seen as high as 8.
Dude, mine was at 12 the other day.
Oh my goodness!
I was like, what?
And like I was on.
I was using it for work as well. But
yeah. It's crazy.
Sheesh.
It's crazy,
It's
and like
half the day.
nobody paid you to do it. That's the crazy part. What are you doing 12 hours a day that no one would pay you for? You know what I mean? Even if we work 1 hour for somebody, we expect payment, right? So, and then it somehow kept our attention. In fact, we pay the services that will allow us to see that, to
We're
be able to see it.
about to with verification now.
And like,
it's already happened.
Yeah, have you seen that come
They
out?
sent it out to me yesterday. I'm like, what the hell is this?
Have you seen that?
Instagram verification, right?
Yeah, well, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, they all have verification subscriptions now.
Yeah. Elon Musk started all that trend, I guess.
He did.
And so you're looking at these things without any incentive whatsoever. So it must be purely leaning into what you want to watch and just the psychology of you going crazy. The example I gave to my students back when I was teaching was that, okay, there are 2 students. One of them is just a nerd and he loves physics. The other one doesn't love physics. He's kind of smart and his parents want them to score well. And so at 2 a.m., kid number 1 wakes up in the middle of the night because they think of something in physics. They were dreaming about physics and they just get up and start reading the book because they just have to figure something out. Versus kid number 2, his parents beat their ass to wake up at 2 a.m. and to continue to study. Who's going to be more successful in life?
Number
First
one.
one.
Exactly. Driven by passion. The other one driven by fear. So I say, okay, well, if you're spending that much time looking at your phone, what are you looking at? That must be something you really enjoy, right? Most of us have functioning lives that aren't just, living in a home. So I doubt you're watching porn for 8 hours, right? So you're obviously looking at a big chunk of what you're looking at is something there. There's something there. And what I found, I was looking at 2.5 to 3 hours a day, realestate.com.au.
There you go.
There you go.
Looking at nice homes.
Yeah.
I do that so much. I look at more interior designs and beautiful, like how people have made homes beautiful, but also beautiful and functional. And then also, I love looking at innovative design.
Yep.
But then innovations in energy and stuff like that. I actually found this really cool thing the other day it was all about home gardening.
Yeah.
Because I'm a full bug out plan, like we should all have a commune each type vibe.
Nice.
And they were saying that you can utilize the electromagnetic field of the earth by using copper wire to do with your plants. And for whatever reason, the electromagnetic field and bringing that closer to the plants will make it grow like exponentially.
Wow.
So like if you had these fake plants in reality, they would be like 10 feet tall instead of 3 feet tall.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's...
So electromagnetic waves.
Yeah. And using copper to...
creates growth.
Yeah. It's wild. And it's just utilizing the magnetic stuff of the earth. Like, did you know about AD, how cold plates? Cold hot plates?
No.
Have you ever seen that? So you can actually get a fry pan, put it on a piece of wood, and if you have these 2 nodes of energy using alternative current, you could put a piece of wood on top of the alternative current. You could sit on that block, put a pan on put a paper, like a newspaper over your lap, and then put the pan on top and still cook an egg.
Yeah, right.
Energy.
And you're not getting heated.
Yeah. Induction, right? Yeah. Unbelievable.
It's wild.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot in terms of like electricity and all that. And like Nikola Tesla said, if you want to know the secrets of the universe, think of it in energy and frequency.
Yeah.
And there's something to that. So I'm keen to see how the world embraces that, because the idea of free energy, I've been seeing whispers and peeps over the last decade of my life.
Yeah.
Of people like coming out with like, hey, this is actually a real phenomenon. We can do it on micro levels.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, such as magnetized energy.
Yeah. And the idea is that like even the pyramids of Giza and all that they were like over 12,000 years old.
Yep.
And they actually had full electromagnetic
Yeah. Wow.
capabilities.
Yeah.
and they just did it in a different way. And it's just a different way to think about getting to the same solution of energy instead of just pulling it out of the ground. It's like it's all around us.
Yeah.
Let's harness it.
That's amazing.
It is pretty cool. It is pretty cool. But I don't know. There's people that are working on it, supposed to be patterns and all that, and they're going to come out with it soon.
Yeah.
What about the line? Have you seen the line?
In Saudi Arabia, near Riyadh. Yeah. That's unbelievable. Yeah.
What do you think about that? Because it looks beautiful and it's a cool idea, but it also looks like a dystopia waiting to happen.
Yeah, right. Do you know that actually caused the announcement of it has caused real estate prices in Riyadh to triple fold.
Yeah, it was a huge project, right?
Yeah, it was a huge project. A big project. Do you guys see the turtle shaped cruise boat?
Yeah,
you can live on it and it just sets sails all the time.
that one's even crazier.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's even crazier. And then like the whole point is to internalize all the living and like the line, going back to the line, the walls are like all mirrored so that it reflects all the light so that you don't have as much heat inside.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd hate to live like that though. Just saying.
Yeah, dystopia.
I mean, it's like living on a city in steroids.
They even have with a turtle. This time you'll be living in the sea, but on land.
The what is it like one end to another end is like kilometers. Like is it a few hundred? It's like 100.
Yeah, it's a few hundred, but everything's 20 minutes.
It's 20 minutes one end to the other.
Yeah,
crazy, right?
So yeah, well, bullet train, right?
Yeah, but the thing is, like, yeah, like you. I guess it's about, it's about the individual. Like, how do you feel about living it? If you want to live there, go for it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, well, obviously, but if you look at it from like a perspective of freedom,
yeah,
it could be taken away real quick if you're living like that.
You know what? That's another. I also feel like, we talk a lot about passion, right? Freedom is not a right.
No, it have to be earned. Like throughout history, we have had the predominant amount of our history. We have been under like a feudal system.
Exactly right. And like even in a pretty free environment, you still have to try hard to earn freedom. Yep. The thing is, a lot of people compromise. They create a smaller definition of freedom, and they go, "I'm okay with it." I'm not saying people who live in the line do not understand freedom. If that is their definition of freedom, like go for it. But we were discussing this before. Like, are you too afraid to find your own passion? Is that too uncomfortable for you? And are you just more comfortable with how uncomfortable you are right now? Just coasting along.
I'll share a story.
Yeah.
So for me, I had to come to my own truth about what I want to do, what I want to become when I lost my identity, coming as an unaccompanied minor. So it became too uncomfortable to the point it made me think that if I don't try now, it doesn't matter if I try or don't try because I have to. It's do or die. So I was forced to see my passion very early.
Yeah.
I feel there's a lot of people in your position that didn't though.
True.
Yeah.
So I don't think you had to see a passion, but that's like what came out of it from the fire for you.
Right. It was forced out because that's why I call it a divine intervention, the journey within. Yeah. So it was an interception that it doesn't always happen. That's why they said the graveyard is the biggest treasure trove because not everyone is going to have a chance to have that spark within their heart and their mind.
Yeah.
Because you got to really internalize what it is.
Speak in the mic a little bit more.
Yeah, you would have to internalize like what it really is, what it means for you, and what it means for your outside environment.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
what's your passion, man?
My passion, well, that's when I discovered like my passion was in real estate. So I'm just like, you know what? I'm stopping law. I'm just going to jump straight into it. So got into it.
In what capacity?
In commercial capacity. So I just got into commercial real estate straight away. And it's only because like I love real estate, but I don't know much about commercial real estate. So so just sprinkle a little bit of challenge in it, right? But it still stayed within that realm. And then off I went. And then I still am a commercial real estate agent now. I used to work for a firm, which was kind of restrictive when it comes to how you market yourself. And then I started marketing myself. And the way I wanted to market myself was with cameras. So when I was in high school, I was a kid with a camera. I took photos and videos of everything. Like I wasn't editing them or anything. I was just storing them. I have so many photos of like my high school days, right? People thought it was weird. Right, it's all good. Now even nowadays,
nice though.
Yeah, even nowadays, 'cause I had a digital camera like that I took around just taking photos of things. Right.
Yeah. Now it's a phone and everybody does it, but
everybody does it. But even then, like yeah, I even then, like, some things can be taken, a photo of, and some things you probably shouldn't, and this and that, whatever. But, and like, like that typical Asian
boys, taking photos of boys in the locker room.
Like, even like that Asian, tourist stereotype, like I'll go through that length. I'm just like, yeah, I'm scratching. I'm like, squatting down in like weird ways to take photos of things. Like, I still do that. I just like doing it. And then I decided to jump in front of a camera and make videos and share my ideas and thoughts and what I know with people. And that's just how I started marketing myself. And then that turned into a bit of volume. And then I started doing more of that. And then, yeah. And then that's how I got started into TikTok and creating content there. And then I started YouTubing.
And that was all real estate related, the content that you were making?
At the beginning, it was real estate related, and then it slightly turned into just like investment and making money and things like that. Crypto was pretty hot then, and that really intrigued me too. I was trading like volatile assets since I was like 16 years old. So I loved doing that too. So
as in, like, you were trading in crypto then? Or?
No, I was trading oil when I was 16.
What?
Yeah.
What?
And nobody told me to do it. My dad didn't tell me to do it.
How did you get into trading oil at 16? I don't know.
I was just on Google.
And you're like, let's just trade oil. How do you even trade oil?
You get on an exchange and you look at the charts and you look at the news around how the world power decides to control the price of oil through outputs and supply
and you
cuts.
Just buy oil stocks and then sell it.
Actually, the commodity itself, the oil contract itself. Yeah.
How expensive are oil contracts?
Back then, I saw oil prices go from like 80 to 40 back then. That was the year that I got into it. And the reason why the oil prices dropped so hard was because the OPEC countries wanted a bigger market share in the world, so they just pumped more. Heck, some of them were just burning oil, just cause. Just pumping the oil supply out there, and because of the high supply and somewhat, it happened over a quick time, and therefore demand relatively stayed constant. And then boom, like that crashed it, and I was shorting the market, so I made a little bit of money.
Yeah, bet. Well done.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So it's like, so that's why, and then I started bringing all those things together, my business experience and whatnot, but the crypto audience was very, very hot.
Yes, it was.
And that brought me the viewership. So that's why I'm where I'm now. And then I realized I like videos, I like talking, I like investing in business.
Yeah, but how many followers do you have? You're mainly TikTok, aren't you?
So my TikTok, 165,000, Instagram, 22,000. And YouTube like 6,000. Oh,
YouTube's a hard beast these days.
Hard. It's so hard. Yeah. But I just pump the shorts all across the platform and stuff. But I want to keep going on YouTube. It's fun. And then the YouTube channel started having too much hodgepodge of all the different things I do. So I then split the YouTube channel into 3: one crypto, one finance, and one travel and lifestyle. So now I travel and I point a camera at everything I do. When I go to slightly cheaper countries, I hire somebody to shoot videos of me, everything I do. And then last year I fell in love with this beautiful thing called scuba diving. And I found other people who are also into that as well. So I started a business in scuba diving. And then
how'd you go about starting a scuba diving business?
Yeah, so it was just getting like-minded people and just executing it. And then, so now what we do is we take people out on like what's called discovery dives, just to discover what it's all like. You can do that in a pool just to understand how the equipment works, or you can do it out in open water. We also give them licensing as well. And then once they're licensed, we take them out to trips out of Australia. So we organize trips to Maldives and Philippines where we just give them a package. We give them 3 meals a day, and then they dive 3 times a day, and they get to see one of the most beautiful places on earth. Obviously, the packages are obviously different prices. One of the packages, we have a boat. You live on it for 8 days. It's like a 5-star accommodation, a shower and an ensuite with everything included, and the chef that cooks you 3 meals a day. And they go out far because you're setting sail for 8 days and you're not docking at a land, so you can go as far as you want. So you're going to really secluded and non-touristy places. So I thought that's really great. And I had done those kind of trips about 4 times before I got started because I'm like, this is amazing. And so every time I do that, I point a camera at it, I make a video, and then I have a worldwide audience with that. And then I can say, hey, come along this journey with us. Come through us, and then we can have clients all over the world. So Singapore, China, Taiwan, Korea, Europe. So people can understand, like they can see what it looks like through my vlogging, if you like, and my travel reviews, which I love doing. And then yeah. And in the meantime, I'm still making videos on finance and things like that on TikTok.
Yeah, that's so cool. You do so much content. How do you even like organize having that kind of scuba business, but then like live here and be here? Because that sounds like something that like you'd kind of need to be present for.
Yeah, so the scuba business is local. There are 3 partners in the business. So I'm just in charge of creating noise and branding and marketing, right? You got to just stick to what you do best.
Yeah, fair.
And then the execution is the other part of the business. But instead of hiring someone who don't care about your business, it becomes a share. So then they also care about the business, and it becomes like our baby. So it's not about just I got to do everything by myself, but it's like you got to team up.
How have you gone about finding trusted people to do that? Because I think that's probably the thing where most people go, oh, you know, how do I go about doing that and building that trust?
I'm not going to say that I'm good at meeting people and everybody that I meet is like tops, but I will admit to the fact that I started early on in meeting people. You like I said to you before, like I just had to work up the courage and just go up to somebody and just say hello and just make the mistake if I was terrible at it. I remember one networking event, I just went there and there was a guy, the topmost guy in that event, and I just said, I'm going to go talk to him. And literally all I ever did was I went to him and I said, I'm going to get going. Like, nice to meet you. And I did that 5 times. How stupid is that? But I made the mistake. But what I think, the impression that I left on him, and I don't sit here being embarrassed by that at all, because what I think it left him thinking is like, oh, this guy obviously wants to talk to me and this is how he's trying. He's young. Yeah, good on him. Attaboy. I got nothing to give him, but I'm sure he'll be all right one day. That's what he thought. And he doesn't care about me after that. It's all good. He's forgotten me. Life goes on. But that's just something that I also encourage younger people to do, is just go and meet people. If all you know is just your job and then you've got 3 friends out of it, come on.
Yeah, you're not doing the most life has to offer.
Yeah, and I don't think Tinder really helps in that. I've never had Tinder, but I just look at a model like Tinder and I'm just going, that what a terrible way to like screw up a person's ability to meet people and have courage and just get up and talk to somebody. Right.
Yeah, well, you don't have to do it, right?
Yeah, you just slide.
Have you seen how people have made like apps and stuff like that, like software to literally go through and swipe everybody and then have an AI and message everybody?
Oh, it's getting out of control.
Right. Yeah. And then the thing is, like, people actually like fall in love with this AI.
Yeah. And then you don't even know the person.
And the way they fed that AI is the only way we know, we understand love, which is through movies with Leonardo DiCaprio in it. So they just fed in Leonardo DiCaprio's lines into the AI. And that's just how wittily this, the wooing has begun. And literally this guy has like 2,000 dates a week.
Yeah.
Because of it. Crazy, right? So we're that simple, I guess.
We are. I mean, Davos has come out and saying like, we completely know how to biohack people. We know how to essentially do like mass mind control because we've figured out everything that makes humans tick now. We've gotten to that level.
I don't even doubt it.
Do it.
I don't even doubt it. Like
they did it. They did it. They shut the whole world down at once.
Yeah. Whoa, big topic. Yeah. So like it's that's something that I did, and so that gives me some, I guess, insight into what kind of people are. But there's a big element of it, which is just take the risk.
Yeah.
And if they're bad people, like try to work it out. Not what is perfect, right? So like with, I just sort of, what can I do better sometimes? What can I give to the partnership?
Fair enough. But in terms of like creating these kind of partnerships with people,
yeah,
how do you go about even like commencing that kind of conversation with people? Do you say, hey, like this is the idea, let's get some contracts drawn up and go from there? Or like, do you just say, hey, this is the idea, let's start it?
The actual mechanics of it all.
Yeah, like how do you actually go about even doing business with people?
You set up a company, issue enough shares, and then allocate shares to different entities that are controlled by each of the partners. So that's the mechanics of it all. You can go through, paperwork and this and that, all the rest of the jazz and whatnot. And you can, right? And I have done it. But it's case by case. And it depends on like what kind of partnership it is, right? So, there's no hard and fast rule, like don't do business with your family or friends, or don't do business with Asians or like the Australians. None of those rules apply. I don't think. It's just about, hey, how do you I don't know. I'm sure there are business people out there that have those rules. Like I've seen family as a big one. Like I never do business with family or something like that. but you sort of navigate it sort of step by step. But what it is this: you got to work with people's strengths, right? And that's it. And wherever you're weak, fill it up with other people's strengths. And I think that's a good way to form partnerships. So, and just play your part to the best of your abilities. Give it as much passion as you can, and if your partner, because what people are afraid is that they feel that their partner is not going to be as committed as you are, right? Like that's the thing, that they take you for a bit of a ride. But the thing is, before you're afraid of that, just kill them with kindness and kill them with your commitment, right? Because sooner or later, if they are not going to be that committed, they'll be the one that walks away anyway, right? And again, I'm young, so I don't think I'm going to lose much. From your
experience, right?
Yeah, I guess so. And then it's just a matter of identifying strengths and weaknesses, and then just working with that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So do you have commercial real estate yourself now that you work in it?
Yeah. So yes. So there is every real estate is quite commercial. But if you're asking whether or not I have a commercial real estate where there's a business happening inside of it, not yet, but I'm getting quite close to one.
Cool. That's exciting.
Yeah, but the thing is, I could have gotten in way earlier with a smaller acquisition, but this is quite a significant one. So that's why I've been working really hard towards it. And there's no ABC of commercial real estate acquisition. There's different ways of financing it. It gets a little bit more funkier.
Yeah, take us through what are some of the ways in which people do it?
Yeah, so there's so many different ways. I'm not saying this is how I did it per se. I've seen people buy commercial real estate with no money. Unbelievable.
How they do that?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a story of some guy who basically bought a property and he's got no money. He had some money for deposit, right? And then go, all right, I have a deposit for this property. Let's say the property was $1 million. And then the property was empty. So an empty property, a commercial property that's empty, has no cash flow. So it's not very valuable. It's not as valuable if it were to have consistent cash flow coming by way of a covenant, which is called a lease. So if you go to this property and it was $1 million and I'm going to put, 20 grand as a deposit for it, let's say. And you have a settlement period, which was like 90 days. And let's say you had enough courage to sign it without any conditions, no finance, no nothing. And then you go, hey, here it is. I'll sign the contract, and then they have control over it. And because it's unconditional, the owners, like the sellers of the property, would just issue out the keys and be like, hey, here's your keys. It's unconditional. You have to settle, so you might as well have the keys. You have to ask for it, I guess, as a buyer. And then with the keys, you copy it, and then you give it to every agent in Adelaide, and you say, hey, go and find a tenant for me. So someone goes there and find a tenant for you, and then somehow the tenant pays $200K a year, let's say, right? And then you go to the bank with that and be like, hey, guess what? I have a property I'm buying. This is the lease. How much would you value the property at? And they'll go, okay, whatever. And then they came back and they said, hey, I'm so sorry. We don't think we can give you as much money. We value this property at $2 million and we can only lend you 50% of it because you have no income. 50% of 2 million is 1 million. That was the contract price. So this person went and bought it without any money down, and then now this asset is returning $200K a year.
Whew, that's such a cool story.
It is a cool story.
And anybody can do that.
The thing is,
as long as you're good at being able to
these opportunities, and also it's very, very hard to find these opportunities. This is like an atypical, like super duper awesome case. But I have seen a client go from buying a property for $1 million. The numbers are different in this one, but this one is a real life case example. This happened at the grim of COVID. Bought an office building for $1 million, no tenant inside.
Like mid 2020.
Yeah, late 2019, right? It was ugly days, right? Like, oh yeah, mid 2020 actually, yeah, because 2019 is when it happened, and then then
2020 is when it popped off in the world.
Yeah, when we popped off in the world, and then like Adelaide was like, it was really grim. Everyone was just working from home and all that. So buying an office property back then it was just silly. And then this person came to me and said, "What do you think about buying this?" And I said, "It's a bit risky." Person bought it anyway. And they said, "I'm settling in a month and a half. Hundo, I want you to go and find me a tenant." So I being a good agent that I am, I went off and I found a tenant. The tenant came in paying 80 grand a year. Whew. And that's a big return on $1 million purchase, right? And then 9 months later, right? So immediately by putting a tenant in, the value went up, like at least to 1.6 or 7 million, I would have thought. Sold for 1.95 million 9 months later. The owner decided to sell it because they're just like, yeah, I made 900 grand, so whatever. See ya.
Fuck yeah.
So there are ways that people value add. Now, they just took a risk. You know what I said about taking action? There is that. But if you want to be a bit smarter for it, some people find the tenant before they buy. And that's how the big dogs play. So they'll be like, okay, hey, Toyota, you want a big dealership in town? Okay, I'll find you, I'll build you a place. And they just go and find the land. And they just buy the land for peanuts. And they build for peanuts.
And they have the agreement. And
already.
As long as they're cool with the area. So you probably get a precondition of like, oh, these are the suburbs that we're willing to be in.
Exactly. And then they sign them up first. And then they will then take that to the bank. And the bank's usually pretty generous when you have all these covenants.
Yeah, especially with a big business.
Yeah,
right?
because it's big business, stable, and at that time it's in that kind of league. People are just looking at your your loan as a case by case thing. There's no blanket rule. Be like, you got to have a $50,000 a year job. You have to have been hired for 3 years, and you just have 25 grand in your bank account, and this has to be your first time, so you can get your first home owner's grant. There's none of that. Bureaucracy so much. It's just look at the situation and be like, is this going to make money or not? The banks start thinking about that. And then they go, okay, this is a no-brainer. And so let me tip all the money in for you. I see a lot of developers nowadays as well. Like in the, like last year, for example, like the residential market did super duper well. So all of these houses will sell off the plan like crazy, like hotcakes. So even before you put the shovel to the ground, 50% of your 40 house development is already sold. And the banks go, hey, well, that's enough. We will. As in, they're selling the end product already before it's built, right? So the bank just tips in all the money, and then just go, okay, well, they use that and then just build it. And so some people that are in this league don't often always have the biggest amount of money.
Yeah, well, I met a guy the other day, and he said, yeah, he just does sell off the plan for every single thing he does.
Yeah, obviously, you have to have some level of capital to get there.
Yeah, because you need to get the property first, right? Yeah. If you're going to sell off the plan. So you need to be able to have it, hold it, and then do that process of designing it.
And that's pretty easy to achieve by owning a handful of residential properties. And how do you buy a handful of residential properties? You start with one. And you start with one with a lack of emotion, but more so, logical thinking. So one of my very first real estate projects was buy a really rundown house and then just renovate it. Don't overcapitalize, right? Buy the worst house in the best street, and then make it the median house, not the best house on the same street again. Just make it the normal house, right? And then A, that increase your equity. B, that increase your rental. When your rental goes up, obviously your equity goes up because the value of your home went up as well. So I think the first house, one of the very first houses that I ever bought was 160 grand. 3-bedroom house, 700 square meters.
You don't find that.
Yeah.
You don't find that at the moment. Unless there's some apartments though. You can get apartments, but they have hectic strata fees.
There is that. And also you don't get any land with it because the land is the one that adds value, not anything else. So I've got this house I bought for 160 grand, put 10 grand in for just I did the floors, I painted the walls, changed some light fittings, and I got a small kitchen, like a much more updated small kitchen in there. The rent went up from 200 and like 100, and it wasn't even rented initially. So it basically pushed the rental up to $360 a week. Holy crap.
Just from doing some minor renovations.
Yeah. And that cost me 10 grand to do.
Wait, what was the renovation you did?
So floors.
Yeah.
Walls painted.
Yeah.
Some light fittings and a new kitchen.
Sure. That's not 10 grand.
Yeah.
Sure, well, more 10 grand.
It cost me 10 grand.
What? Where'd
so
you get it from?
The floor basically ripped up the carpet.
I get the floor.
This was 6 years ago. And the kitchen I bought. So there's this business called Amarini. Quick shout out. It's a cheat. They have these off-season parts. Not everything is available. And the colors are all really, really dull. They're all neutral colors, which is the best. You don't want to buy a red kitchen. Nobody wants them. One of them will crazily want it, but it's hard for you to find that person. So you stick to your neutrals when it comes to investment properties, right? Yeah. And you can easily find them. Like they've got like 10 different models available, but only like on the brochure, but only like 1 or 2 of them are available or something like that. So you just got to like scrape after these offcuts and whatnot and it works, and it comes out a lot cheaper. And then they have some trades that they hook you up with, and they're cheap as well. And then that's just how it all finished. 10 grand. I budgeted 9, but it ended up being 10.
Life hack right there.
Yeah, and also
that's how you flip a fucking house.
Yeah, and then also you have to talk to your managers, right? They know all the best trades that are cheap, and they have a good bargaining power over
Property
them.
managers.
Yeah, property managers. So I became really good friends with them. See, that's the thing. Become friends with people because they will help you. People aren't out to get you. They're there to help you as long as you're a good enough guy. Right?
Yeah. Well,
they say 3
don't
things.
Don't be a sleazeball, right?
Yeah, there's 3 things, right? 3 things to say, okay. To be successful, all right, be likable, show up on time, and be good at what you do. Not great at what you do, just good at what you do. And to be really successful, do 2 out of these 3 things. So like, and it's all about, they help you. I'm not saying I'm likable. I think I'm the least likable. Anyway, but it's like,
you don't. I call bullshit on that. You don't think you're the least likable. Well, you're definitely a charismatic man.
Well, but I have my moments with people, and people have their moments with me. That's the thing. So like with the property manager, it just clicked really well, and I started getting all this information, and I'm just like, okay, well, I'll go there and check it out. And then my rent went up. Like right now, I'm bringing in 360, 370 a week now, which is great. The property price now is $340. On $160,000 investment.
That's great.
Yeah. And
is this a unit?
No, it's a house with 3 bedrooms, 780 square meters of land.
What suburb?
Up north.
Like how far north?
Playford Council.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It's
That's a good council, actually. They've been doing a lot up there.
A lot of work. Yeah, no, the thing is, that's the thing. Where there's weakness, there's opportunity. People go, it's like, oh, houses up there are so bad. Everyone was calling me crazy when I was doing that.
How do you go about dealing with because the biggest issue I find that people have said that they have is that they have tenants that just do not respect these properties. Either they make it really dirty all the time, or they actually they break heaps of shit.
Okay. All right. So when you put out a house for rent in this market, not this market, but in that area of town, you get like 30 applications, first of all. So take your pick, cherry pick, the best kind of people. Ideally with somebody with with some steady income, whether that comes from the government or a job, doesn't really matter. I guess you don't discriminate, blah, blah, blah. So you just pick someone that you deem is good, or go according to your advisor's advice, right? Which is your property manager. So go for that. Good. And then with that, what you're going to do is, that obviously, reduces the risk fair bit. Now, bad things can still happen. It's okay. Now, if you don't want anything bad to happen, never leave the house, first of all. Okay. But second of all, you have insurance. So that obviously covers for any damage that they bring. And as a property owner, you have to have insurance. Investment properties have to have insurance, and you have landlord's insurance, and they cover you all the time. Loss of rent, damages, all get covered. And often it kind of works out better for you if something does bad, bad things does happen.
Because then you have write-offs.
You have write-offs, and also they come in, not only write-offs, you can't write off a house per se unless it like burns down. I haven't had a property burn down on me.
But you can write off maintenance.
Yeah, so if I've had all the copper wiring, copper piping, all taken out of a house before. Like just one night, there was a big raid and they just chopped off all the copper wiring. So that obviously, like the hot water system was shot, and they do it so they can sell the copper and make money and just use that money, right? Whatever they want to do. And then that obviously was terrible. Like all the water got disconnected, gas, everything was a big problem. But then I just organized the trade straight away the day after. And then I got brand new copper wiring all across. The hot water system had to be changed. So I got a brand new hot water system too, right? And then that was all covered. Obviously, you got to pay excess, but it's okay because you've had those improvements, I guess. So it's all the copper piping became brand new because it was all got cut off.
Yeah, okay. And when people start to do this kind of stuff and start to try and build up their own investment portfolio, whether it be the first or the second one, how much cash flow do you think people should be able to set aside for not to buy, not just the deposit, but just to have there to be able to set up whatever place? Yeah.
So if you are a single person living at home, like with mum and dad, right? Or, what have you, and you have a job, you're in the best position to buy a house. Now, don't look at what you want, but look at the numbers. Don't look at how much properties are selling for in a particular marketplace and how much they're renting for in a particular marketplace, and go to enough suburbs. And that's all I was doing when I was on my phone, on my internet, that's every day. And go for the one that returns high, especially now because interest rates are high. So you want something that could cover your interest rate. So a rental property will always rent. It'll always rent. If it doesn't rent, the price is too high, so reduce it and just rent it out. If you want $350 a week and you're not renting it for 2 weeks, you're losing $700. So might as well bring the price down to $330 a week, lose $20 and get it leased out so you don't lose $700.
Yeah, fair.
Adjust.
Now, another thing in terms of what properties to look for, I've heard from, have you heard the 31-minute podcast?
No.
Oh, it's phenomenal. Definitely would recommend.
Okay.
Property guy. In the Eastern Seaboard.
Yeah.
And one thing that they've said on that podcast is that the best thing for young people to do in whatever city you are in Australia is to start with units that are a small amount of units in the complex.
Yeah.
And then buy one at a time as they come up over the lifetime.
That is a great idea. I actually like that. But you will have better capital growth on house with land. So with Torrance title, which is not shared by other strata or communities, right? So that's what I'll do. But that's why I can understand them say buy units that have less in their strata than more, because that way you have more control over your land.
And also over time, you could get the whole property.
Exactly right. But the thing is, if you get house and a bit of land in the backyard, right? There's so many hacking strategies that you can do to increase your cash flow, which is amazing. And increasing cash flow is everything because you have no mortgage stress whatsoever. That's what you want. So then the big question becomes, why haven't you bought a property? Because if buying property, you make more money per year. That's called positive cash flow. That's called positively gearing. But the government sells this scam called negative gearing, which basically says, hey guys, go buy something that loses you money so you pay less tax. The pay less tax sounds attractive, but the thing is, isn't it the truth that you pay less tax because you lose money? Right? So let me tell you, the best day of your life is going to be the day when you write a $2 million check to the ATO. Who's complaining about that?
Yeah, I mean, after you do everything you can do to minimize your tax.
Exactly.
Of course.
and if taxation was based on your pure turnover income, then that would be very, very bad to pay a lot of tax. But it is based on your profit, then it is not a bad system. Tax is good.
For companies.
For investments.
Yes.
Normal people can have investment, like a property, for example, right? So anything you profit on, you're paying on top, right? So that's okay. So if your property income was higher than any expense, including your mortgage repayments and your insurance premiums and your excess and your management fees, then hey, it's made you more money. Then when it makes you more money, that means you make more money. Therefore, you can service a bigger loan, and therefore you can accumulate your subsequent deposit faster. And therefore, get to your second investment. Now, when you get to your second investment, you got two properties making money for you every year by way of rent and cash flow and by way of capital, because both of these prices go up.
And what do you think about refinancing then? Because that was a scenario where you weren't refinancing and you were just using the money to do the next deposit.
Exactly.
What do you think about the refinance method in the market like today, given that we don't know where interest rates are going to go?
Yeah. So so I was just about to say before, people that buy properties now aren't going to be the ones that are going to be in trouble, I don't think. People who are in trouble right now are the ones that bought property because interest rates were so low and they were celebrating. Money's cheap, everybody. Let's go buy all the big properties, right? I can afford this now. I can pay 2.5% in interest rate. That means I'm only going to pay 25 grand a year on $1 million house. Let's go, baby. So they go out and buy these big houses. Now that mortgage bill is what, triple? Right? Then what?
Then they got to sell.
Yeah, well, they got to sell. So the people who bought in 2019 and 2020 are the only ones that are in trouble. And that's 3% of the marketplace right now, which is bugger all, right? So,
but there's 3% of deals coming.
But those are yeah, exactly. And so those guys are in trouble, whatever. But the guys that are able to and afford to buy now are going to be less in trouble because interest rates are going to stop hiking at some point because enough is enough and recession is going to come. And then that's going to be the time when the interest rates will come down. Now, will that then necessarily mean property prices have to crash? Not really, historically.
How's this one? Is that out? Okay, you need to tell us that when that happens, dude.
Yeah.
You need to speak because this is why we're here, is to create content, my friend. And obviously the conversation is the content, so it's just ample. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that out. You're going to pause that and we're going to take the SD card out and we're just going to have an intermission, unload it, and then keep going.
Yeah, sounds good.
And we're back, baby. We're back in action.
We're back. We're back in.
All right, so we're talking about property. We're talking about buying your properties, leveraging it, adding value to it. In terms of like, let's switch it up a little bit. What do you think are the best things to do, given that the world is headed into some pretty dark times, not just with inflation and whatnot, but we have people and bodies that are mergers between both big business and big government making big moves to essentially take over the world in many senses. When you have BlackRock and these huge equity firms that own majority of the world's largest investments and largest companies, and now they're getting into residential real estate markets. Where do you think is safe investments for people to navigate into?
Yeah, I mean, not financial advice. And I guess nobody can really tell the future. We can only work with the past models, because if we're all going to have a doomsday, we're all just going to have a doomsday, right? So it's hard to say, and to survive that, like I've sat down with many finance influencers, and the jury's out as well on our discussions too. And some of us are very well educated and quite analytical about the marketplace too. Obviously, the world is looking towards gold and the digital version of that, which is Bitcoin, and that's where the crypto craze sort of kind of begins. And it is very easy to turn the cold shoulder to that at this stage. And I wouldn't blame you if you were to have that attitude towards Bitcoin, because it is a very, very early technology, of course. But having said that, if the alternative is that it doesn't go to a doomsday where everything blows up and everything's set on fire, and so we have to carry the balloons of gold around, and that is to work with just sound financial principles. And sound financial principles are based on what's called quantitative easing, which is a fancy way of saying government's printing money.
Yes.
So that is driven by greed, and that is the most surefire attitude that we can ever expect from a humankind. And so that is so the presumption of this particular practice is that will continue. So if we look at the last, 80 years of, US stock market and things like that, the currency has dropped 99% in value, right? So things cost a lot more nowadays. But that came at the benefit of all your asset prices going up like crazy. So inflation is good. It makes your things and items and assets go up in value.
Yeah, it goes up in value. Your debt goes down in value.
Yeah, exactly. So inflation is what's going to happen. And with inflating money, then you have to start asking the question, what are you spending it on? Are you spending it on perishable things, or are you spending it on assets? So the accumulation of assets, I think, is the key, and to be able to do it over a long period of time. So as a young person, you've got a whole lifetime ahead of you, and to cover off any liabilities attached with your assets, thinking about cash flow is really important. And that's where I see real estate as being the magic formula. Throughout recession, people go, oh, should I be not buying real estate because the real estate is going to go down in value? I'm like, yes, maybe that's true. But through many interest rate hikes, real estate prices have continued to go up in certain markets. So it comes down to show, like, where's your head at? Are you researched enough to actually make the decision on going ahead on a property? And a good thing about property is that you can actually fabricate, you can actually come up with a deal yourself. They say you make your money on real estate on the day you buy, not on the day you sell. Because if you buy something that's worth $1 million for 900 grand, hey, you made $100,000 today. Well done. So it's about being able to hustle out a good deal. And of course, real estate, over time, when a recession comes, people can't afford to buy property, so they turn to renting. When they turn to renting, well, then the rental demand goes up, so your cash flow goes up as well. When your cash flow goes up, then your capital goes up too, which is good. And of course, when a recession does come, the governments around the world are just going to do more quantitative easing, which is just reducing the interest rates again. When then it's going to then bring more liquidity, aka money, into the supply. And that's going to go into real estate as well. And of course, when there's a recession too, people like what's called risk-off assets, which real estate consistently has been. It's
something everybody needs, right? Especially when you look at residential real estate. Like, people, may move out of their offices, but they're not going to move out of their home. Yeah,
exactly right. So we all need a roof over our head. And one thing that's really good about the Australian market is that despite the ample supply of land here in Australia, Australian house prices remain competitively high across many densely populated regions around the world. How is this possible? It's possible because the Australian government controls the supply of homes. It's called council regulations. You can't just get a piece of land and pay the council, the council decision makers, give them $10,000 in their pocket as a way of bribe and just say, hey, let me build 20 houses on this tiny piece of land. Therefore, oversupplying the market, therefore messing up the market. Australian house price, like median housing has gone up, 700% in the last 8 years or so? Median house price, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's huge.
That's massive.
And
my numbers could be a little bit off. Yeah, I know. But the thing is,
what's a better investment than 700% in 8 years?
Exactly. But how did that happen in a land of just ample land? Yeah, abundance of land, right? Of oversupply of land. But the thing is, it's not. So the town planning, and as much as a lot of property developers are like annoyed by it, but that's the reason why we're all making money. It's because of those regulations. You go to some Asian countries where you're just like, you have a piece of land, mate, it's all yours. Go for gold. Do whatever wacky thing you want. And, it's a good tourist destination to see these kind of crazy things happen. But at the same time, it can be an oversupply. Some parts of China, there is a lot of, they just go crazy on the developments, and then the whole town becomes a ghost town because there's an oversupply, and it becomes,
I have seen some of those ghost towns, and they're just like fully formed modern cities that just nobody moved into.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is, how do you fuck that up?
It's a big waste of resources, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes. How do those things even? Do you know the story of how those things even crumbled? Like, didn't actually pan out and work in the end?
Yeah. So basically, the demand just didn't catch up to the gentrification that they were going for. So they go to a middle of nowhere, trying to make a big gap on cheap land and the end product. And the thing is, the uptake didn't quite happen because of economic factors or businesses, and the infrastructure is not quite happening.
They needed to sell off the plan.
Exactly. And the thing is, Australia keeps a close eye on that, a lot better than many other jurisdictions I've seen. Every time I travel, I always make sure what their property market is like. I check their commercial rates and their housing rates, and how much return they're getting on their rentals, and how much gap there is between the mortgage they pay and the rental income that the owners have as well. Whether they control foreign owners or whether they don't control foreign owners, I keep an eye on that. And to be honest, I haven't seen a jurisdiction that does better management of a property market than Australia.
Boom, bam.
Yeah, so that's why it's pretty safe here as well. And so it gives young people a fair go. And I might catch a bit of flack for saying that, because a lot of young people nowadays are just complaining. But it is also... Well,
everybody says it's too hard to get into the market. Nobody says the market's bad.
Yeah.
Everybody just says it has the barrier of entry.
But the thing is this, a lot of what determines a house at the beginning for young people in Australia is that they got to buy something that looks pretty and where they can raise a dog, right? And I just don't think that should be the criteria at the beginning, at least. You want to be able to have some investment. So buying an investment property is buying a property where you might not necessarily find yourself living in, that has good income, that may have some pretty dull looking kitchen in your eyes, but it serves a good purpose for a regular renter to move in, right? And be able to make a level-headed and a logical decision, a numerically sound decision, to be able to increase your asset before you pursue the luxury. And I'll tell you what, developers are fantastic at finding that middle ground to get the richest young people, like obviously of the middle class, to give that like final squeeze and stretch to be able to pay just enough money for the developers to make money and give them a reasonably compromised level of luxury. I'm telling this now. So if you're a young person, don't go by don't go and, I mean, you can if you want to. If that's what makes you happy, go for it. But if investment is the focus, I wouldn't be making those decisions. That
do not buy off the plan.
And don't chase pretty. Chase utility and rentability, because you will get to pretty quicker than chasing pretty now. That's what I think. And you'll get to a better version of the pretty.
And do you think that we can use Sydney and Melbourne as a cool forecast of what the future of Adelaide could also look like? Because there's been a lot of things in Sydney and Melbourne that of past decades have now, one, come into trend, but also just standed the test of time, such as the red brick buildings. Mm-hmm. They've just standed the test of time, and they've just continued to go up in value, even if their units over there.
Yeah, right. So I would look at Melbourne and Sydney as a more volatile market than South Australia. So when South Australia sort of has a cozy, slant upwards, they will sort of go up and down, but sort of be magnetized to that general trend, which is why we've seen median price growth over the years, right? So, but does that cause some opportunities to enter in? Absolutely, it does. So that's where there's some good opportunities in Queensland right now, for example. So when things go up really fast, they also tend to crash really fast as well. And if you're well resourced to be able to time those investments, that's great. Chances are most young people are not going to have the ability to time that too well. Like I said, rather than those timing and those leaning into those strategies, again, making an entry is really good. Now, you talked about units. Yes, if there is an opportunity for you to buy a unit, like go for it. And if that makes you happy and that if that is a good decision that you believe you're making is good, then...
Well, I think people, most of the time, they rationalize it because the cash flow always tends to be sound.
Exactly right. But the thing is, house prices do not climb as fast as houses that have land. So I have a classic example. 8 years ago, you buy a house with 700 square meters for $300,000 somewhere in, I don't know, Salisbury or Paralawi or whatever, versus a unit that's $300,000, let's say, in only 9 years ago, right? You've had the cash flow, but the thing is, how much is the Paralawi house now? And then the $300,000 unit can just sort of stay there. Yeah. And it's gotten older as well. So, units go up in value in highly, highly, highly densely populated areas.
And that's why Melbourne and Sydney, it makes more sense.
Have that, or some Asian countries.
Definitely.
There, like you buy an apartment, it'll double, triple, quadruple. But the thing is, in Australia, even in Melbourne and Sydney, I believe, it doesn't.
Rich.
Yeah. And also with apartments and units, the thing is there's always a better looking one around the corner because they're the new one that's getting built. Whereas the landed houses tend to have character and they're far more timeless.
Yeah.
So, but also there are other things to consider with brand new offerings is that you have some depreciation benefits as well, which for higher income earning youngsters might be of benefit to them as well. But I genuinely believe that over the long run, having a lot of exposure to land that generates cash flow is probably the best direction to go.
Beautiful. And then in terms of your real estate journey, like how are you maneuvering, given that you've already got a few properties, like what's you're getting into commercial, like what's your vision?
Yeah, my vision is to keep accumulating more cash flow to the point that the deposit is now the deposit of a subsequent property is being generated by the cash flow of the previous properties.
Yeah, okay. So you don't refinance and use the equity.
I will continue to refinance as the equity goes up, and then use the cash flow of the properties of it in itself to continue to finance and service the subsequent acquisitions. I also obviously work and I have commissions that come in through deals that I do, and that's obviously going to go towards that as well. Any business income will be attributed towards that. I genuinely believe property is the best way to accumulate wealth.
Beautiful. I love that. Okay, and then in terms of looking at where does cryptocurrency play for you?
Yeah, so cryptocurrency is an interesting field that has a lot of eyeballs and attention, which then obviously is beneficial for a creator like myself. And it is a great place to garner interest in financial investments and actually help people understand a broader picture of how to manage their money. So a young person could be like, oh, crypto is amazing, and they just jump in. And that's the first time they start inquiring about how volatile assets work and how to manage their money. And then what I talk about is then, okay, with high risk assets, allocate smaller amounts of money, and lower risk asset, allocate more amounts of money. That's just sound portfolio management theory, right? And practice. So that's something that I have an opportunity to speak into. And that's something that we talked about just before we started the podcast, is that my passion is to help people understand how finances work by just learning the metrics and understanding how to not only just observe the economic data, but also be able to put that into practice. There's just so much, if I may introduce a hack as well for young people, if stocks is like something that you're interested in, people have different interests, like I'm clearly very interested in real estate, but the way stocks work, if you couldn't do anything with your money and you're always just working and you're too busy to do real estate and all the rest of it, the very bare minimum you can do is just put $500 away a month.
In an index fund?
An index fund that returns 8% a year over the last 100 years, which survived through 2 world wars and God knows how many pandemics, and that averages 8%, 9% a year, that if you do that for 30 years, you basically have like, $750,000 in your bank account, which is a big deal. So this is the time value of money, something that you have to understand.
You have even more than that, actually, don't you?
Sorry?
Over 30 years. I think don't you have more than that?
I think I've done the annuities calculation over in itself, but it's phenomenal. And then what I tell also, if you haven't done it for yourself, then do it for your kids. So the day, Hamish, you have your kid, the day they're born, all right, and the monthversary of their life, you put in $200 a month into an index fund under their name. And then when they turn 14 years of age, give them a job at McDonald's, and then they will make that $200 a month. They'll make $400 a month, spend $200 on going to movies and catching up with friends. Hopefully they do. And then the other $200, they'll put it into their own index funds. And then when they turn 18, show them the balance. They'll be like, whoa, this is my money. And you'll say, yeah, it is. And then obviously the principal won't be very much, because the time value of money over 18 years is quite a lot as well. So you would have only put a small portion of that money for them to enjoy that much money. As a parent, you'd only put a little bit in. And then second of all, they have a choice then whether to spend it right then and there, or they can go, okay, then you can extrapolate this to the time you're 30 years old, which adds on another 12 years. When they're 30 years old, I'm almost 30 now, and they would have in their portfolio 1.2 million or something crazy. So it's their choice.
And it's such a simple life metric, like simple way to do life.
Discipline, right? It's hard work. And you know what? My parents didn't do this for me, and I'm only getting started since I was like mid-20s, right? So it's obviously, the time value of money is real. Obviously, I'm going to enjoy this when I'm 50, but the thing is, for my kid, it's going to be completely different. And this is a great way to beat inflation, for example. What a fantastic way to beat inflation. And
the market's not going to die, right?
Yeah, exactly, right.
The world has to die, and then you got different concerns.
And if the world has to die, it's not money. It's about working out and hunting. So that's a different story. But
I love you say working out.
Yeah,
it's about going to the gym, boys.
Which I'm not really investing into, clearly. But obviously, that's something that's codified into Australian financial system, and that's called super. Now. Right?
Yes.
Now, super is also interesting.
But they take fees.
That's the thing. But the thing is, super funds also expose what they're investing in. So why couldn't you just replicate that by yourself without paying the fees? So you can run self-managed super funds as well, which is another good way to get tax breaks too.
Yes. However, I did hear that in terms of running your own self-managed super fund, because it's still in the super category, there's still a fair bit of expenses in terms of being seen as a credible self-managed super fund in the eyes of the law and stuff like that, and it actually ends up being a pretty hectic unless you are at a pretty damn high income level.
Exactly.
And it doesn't really make sense to do it.
Exactly. And also they looked at the ATOs did a report on SMSF reportings, and then SMSFs actually perform 20% worse than just the regular government managed super funds. Now, the thing is this, the amount of super that you get is obviously paid on top of your salary, right? So, if you want that to go on an event itself, it's fine. But there's no reason why you couldn't run your own little investment behavior. Yes. So that's where this kind of practice can be really, really helpful. I'll give you another hack. This is a mind-blowing, and I cannot believe that people don't know this. And it is following... Okay, this is all because of regulation as well. So in the United States, there's what's called Securities and Exchanges Equities Commission, SEC. And there's a rule in SEC where big hedge fund managers who manage more than $100 million have to report. There are two types of form. I'll talk about the first form. It's called Form 13F. These filings occur every quarter, and it has to be lodged within 45 days of a quarter ending. So on the 45th day of every end of a quarter, all these hedge fund managers frantically lodge their 13Fs. The form includes all the information about when and how much and at what price these hedge funds have bought and sold stocks within their portfolio. Now, you might say that's 45 days too late for me. But the thing is, hedge funds do not trade 50 times a day. They don't. They're investment companies. So what you will do is that you'll find that 45 days later, there is still a good price entry for you there. So that's one thing that you could look for. And
there's apps now that track.
That's right. And then there's and obviously one thing that you could start off looking into is Berkshire Hathaway, which is run by Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha, the the best investor in the world as we know it.
That and Ray Dalio.
Yeah, Ray Dalio. We got also Michael Burry's another one. But it's interesting how
Michael Burry's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Because he's often seen as a legend more than like the best consistent.
And he might have just been really lucky. And I can catch a lot of flack for saying this, but he timed the short of the GFC. If he was a bit too early or too late, then he wouldn't be as rich as he is now. But the thing is, and guys like Peter Lynch would comment on that. So it's not about timing. It's not timing the market, but time in the market. But the thing is this, that's one form that you can track. Another form is called Form 4. And Form 4 obligates big hedge fund managers or any insiders of a company to announce their investments and divestments as and when they happen. So what are insiders? Directors, secretaries, all those guys, but also any shareholder that owns more than 20% of the company. Now, there's a handful of assets, of stocks that Warren Buffett owns where his stake in these companies are more than 20%. And you don't think he invests in these companies so much because he loves them and he thinks that he's going to make money out of them. Of course he does. And you can see live as and when he makes a decision. Now, if you could trace that and become as good of an investor as Warren Buffett is, hey, could you ask for more in this world?
No, well,
you're going to be better than best.
Good.
Yeah, pretty damn good. So these are just simple hacks that you can do as just a regular, and you know what, when these forms come out, articles come out on Forbes and The Economist and things like that, just to analyze on what are the common consensus decisions that big hedge fund managers have made in this quarter. Could you get a better answer book?
Yeah, right. And then there's also another one where it tracks different like senators and stuff like that in the US.
That's right. But
I think it's called Quiver or something like that.
Quiver Quant. And that's but the thing is, you have to like pay subscription on there and you have to be like really live, and there's a lot more frequency with that kind of stuff. What I'm sharing is something that average 9 to 5, overworked, time poor people could simply do by way of achieving the most with the smallest amount of effort. So that's an interesting one as well. But sometimes they shoot themselves in the foot by doing that too. I've seen some mixed results with the senator's decision as well.
Are they going after Nancy though?
Maybe
you got to follow Nancy.
I don't know too much about that one, but
it's a joke because she like outperforms even like Warren Buffett and stuff like that.
Exactly, right. So I mean, maybe that's something that you guys can look into. But I've just found a lot of sense in just following the 13Fs and the Form 4s, which is really, really interesting.
And where do you go about accessing that?
You just Google 13F filings, and then there's a whole list of companies that come out. And then I think there's a website called Form 4 Tracker or something. I don't know in these websites. It's just,
is there Australian equivalents?
No, I don't. I couldn't find it. I don't see much point in investing into the Australian stock as much, although there is a big niche of people that are going nuts over Australian stocks too. But the thing is, one thing I would worry about Australian stocks is that depending on the market cap of the company that you're investing, you might have some liquidity issues where you're trying to sell stocks and nobody's buying them because there's not enough people participating. So that's why if you want to get rid of those unnecessary risk in a financial market, then you would obviously go for the more liquid and a larger marketplace, which is the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ, right? So that's why I would opt for that. And obviously, I don't know, some people preference Australian markets because they day trade and they want to be up when they're trading as well. So it comes down to different factors, I guess. But yeah, these are just some of the things. And I love to just profess this to people's lives and just say, I'm not saying go and do it. Go and find out what it's like. See what it's like. And just be patient. And just follow the footsteps, I think is a good way to start. And then, so in my life, there's just a whole bunch of things happening.
What else happening?
Yeah.
What else is going on in your life? You seem like you have a lot of spinning plates.
Yeah. So, obviously these are the investment, direction and the research that I do. But then again, you got to look at the opportunities in your life. I've been blessed with an opportunity to love diving so much that I want to start a diving business. I've been surrounded by good people in a way that we're actually starting a disability support services company. So, there are people who have a passion for servicing the disabled community of our society. So I partner with these people. They are nurses, right? They have a nurse qualification, senior level nurse qualifications, and they go, I see a lot of discrepancies in the way servicing is done in the marketplace, and I would like to improve that, but I don't know anything about business. So could you please help? So that's where I come in to then become a part of that team as well. So just forming these partnerships around the places, and of course, I love creating content. So I have a studio where I allow people to come in and talk about their campaigns and then just create content. I'm just sort of leveraging off of the resources that I already have, and they just work off of that. I love to travel, of course, and then when I do travel, but I've done quite a lot already, so I'm very glad to be back, and I sort of want to stay put. But I do have one more trip coming up.
Where are you going?
Going to this place called Raja Ampat. It's like
where's that?
It's a place out of Indonesia, and the landscape was the base plate of what they drew Avatar out of. So it's actually a very beautiful place.
Dude, Avatar's sick.
Yeah.
And so does it have like a huge mountains, just like
like they're like little
in the sky and type thing?
Not in the sky, but like they look like domey mountains on the water.
Oh, okay.
Like these islands and clusters of it. It's really fascinating to look at, and the underwater life is just very, very rich there. So we're going on a boat that's gonna have like 20 people on it.
You might actually be able to answer this question I have. Right. So I love doing adventure sports. So that's my shit.
Yeah, right.
And I've noticed over the last few years as I'm gaining age and wisdom, that when I jump in the water or go under, like the pressure messes with my ears.
Yeah, right.
Of just even jumping in the water, and I go psh, because I once had a perforated eardrum.
Okay.
So my question is, can you just put like earplugs in your ears and go scuba diving?
Yeah, right.
Like, should I be all right?
Yeah. So the reason why you feel any pressure underwater is because there are pockets of air in your body. Mm. So in your sinuses, it's actually just one empty space. Within your nose is also empty space. Do you know why you don't wear goggles when you scuba dive instead of wearing a mask?
No.
It's because the airspace between your goggles and your eye. So when you go underwater, if you go 10 meters underwater, the air becomes half the size because of all the pressure. So your lungs, for example, becomes half the size 10 meters underwater.
That's wild.
So what happens is it means that will double the size as you come out of the water, right? So one of the rules of scuba diving is that you never hold your breath. So if you're 10 meters underwater, you take a deep breath in through the regulator, through the air that comes in, and then you go up to the surface. Your lungs can actually blow up.
So you actually want to empty your lungs as you're going
So as you're going up, you go, just like letting a little bit of air out that comes out. And obviously that open canal is going to control that push. The pressure is going to obviously push the air out naturally and things like that. So if you have earplugs in your ears, you're basically capturing a bit of air within your ear, and then the areas that are blocked by your earplugs, right? So that pocket of air. Imagine that contracting half the size within 10 meters of your dive. That's going to be a lot of pain.
Yeah.
That's going to basically, it's going to crush the cavities of your ears, right? So it's really bad. So it's better to just let the water go into your ears.
And it sounds like it's the one sport that I won't be able to do.
Yeah, well, we've had a lot. Can you swim?
Yeah.
You can go, and can you do a dive on 2 meters under the water?
No, it hurts my ears now.
Hurts your ears.
Yeah.
When it does, that's actually very normal. When it does, pinch your nose and blow into it.
I'll give it a go because I do want to be able to enjoy the underwater world.
Yeah, that's called equalizing. So what you're doing is you're using your lungs to put more air. So obviously you're going 2 meters underwater. So obviously your airspace is wanting to quarter. It's like about 25% of its airspace wants to shrink. Mm. So how do you then give it more space? You got to put more air into it. How do you put more air into your sinuses? Well, by breathing out, you're letting the nostrils basically release the air out of it. But you close your nose and you breathe out, and then the air will fill that sinus again, and you won't feel that pressure anymore. So that's called equalization. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You just got to remember to do it, and you know even professional divers do that every couple of meters. Go right like that, or you swallow, or when you swallow, you basically open up every cavity to your lungs, and your lungs is what's producing and regulating all the air within your body, right? So that's what's going to then open it up, and you're going to release your pressure.
Yeah, okay. And what's the deepest you've gone?
40 meters.
40 meters. Oh my Lord, that's so deep.
So that's you can go as deep as 40 meters by getting an advanced license. So
Where were you?
I was in Philippines.
What was it like?
It was great. I was next to a shipwreck.
Ah, that's so cool. Did you find treasure?
No, but I found like lionfish and frogfish.
What's a frogfish?
Frogfish, it looks like this, and it just sort of like sits there and sort of waddles.
What?
Yeah.
And it's on the surface, on the bottom of the ocean?
No, it's on the boat.
Ah.
It's on the shipwreck. Yeah. So that was really cool. I saw a seahorse, lots of
that's
Nemos. Cool. Yeah. It's really cool. And like schools of fish is really interesting. And yeah, diving is like the best thing ever. Like it's such a good sport. You're together with everybody else and you're completely alone. And you're limited to communicating with like little hand signals and stuff. And it's just complete weightlessness and you feel so relaxed. And yes, techniques do get in the way of enjoying the sport. I do agree. But that's what I devoted my business to, help people explore this hobby, this sport. And you ideally want to know how to swim, but you could not know how to swim and you can still be a great scuba diver.
Yeah, well, because you're just going down, then you just need to be able to kick your legs to go back up, right?
Exactly right. And then like there's ways that your breathing controls the buoyancy within the water as well. So you don't even have to kick; you just have to breathe in a lot, and then it goes up. And then like you have to breathe out, and then you start sinking again.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that.
So your lungs in itself is like a life jacket. So you breathe and it goes up and whatnot. So it's a very, very interesting sport. And with the right training, and that's why organizations like PADI and SDI and all these organizations exist to put up a framework.
What's yours?
We're PADI.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. To be able to then get people, and that's the most recognized one. So to be able to then allow people to enjoy the sport as much as they can and go through the right steps with it. And we're very confident. But yeah, I mean, there's always a pool session. So you start off in a pool, and then you just work from there. And that's where you're going to start to feel those little pressures in there and whatnot. And that's how you sort of begin to release. So you start off standing on the bottom of a pool, your head's still out the water. So
yeah,
there's always a process with it. Every time when you go into a foreign environment, like safety is so important. And safety is highly infringed when there is panic. And panic comes through when there is no preparation. So we're all about getting everybody prepared so that they can have the most fun safely and just have a great time. But the bigger danger is getting really into the hobby, because that's when you start buying all this equipment and just having too much fun.
That's with everything, isn't it?
That's with everything.
Dude,
right?
My sport's like downhill mountain bike riding.
Oh yeah.
So that's
an expensive sport.
Expensive.
Yeah,
it's expensive.
The bikes are expensive, aren't they? All the shocks and the brake pads.
Like $12,000 for a bike.
I know, that's a car.
Yeah, it's legit a car.
Yeah.
And it's not even a bad car.
Yeah,
it's actually, you can get a nice car for $12,000.
Exactly. And like, what?
I got a car for $10,000. $9,800 the other day.
Fantastic.
Got a 1989 Toyota Land Cruiser 60 Series.
Hey.
Ooh, baby.
That'll go anywhere.
Oh, dude, it's the best.
Yeah, it'll go anywhere. Such a good buy as well in this market.
Yeah, well, I bought it in 2020.
Yeah.
So like they're going up. Because the body, it's a classic car. So you can put it in the classic Rego.
Yeah.
And you only pay you pay fuck all. Like I think $120 lasts like several years.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like cheap. You can only use it for like 120 days a year.
Yeah.
In terms of what you have to log and all that.
Yeah.
But like it's not my daily.
I'd have to have a look at it.
But it's cool.
Yeah. So good.
Get a long range fuel tank. Got a little drawer in the back.
Yeah.
Put my swag in there.
So good. Have you gone camping with it and stuff?
Oh yeah. Many times.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good fun.
Where's some good camping spots?
Oh, actually, there's this new one we're going to try out. Where is it? Oh. Anyway, where we've been is like Salt Creek. It was cool. You go on the beach there. That's a nice one. Flinders Ranges, like Wilpena Pound.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. They got some great hikes up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got some big hikes. And have you ever been to Flinders Ranges?
Yeah, Mount Olsenbaggy, St. Mary's Peak.
Yeah, St. Mary's Peak. That walk
is
phenomenal.
Yeah, St. Mary's Peak, yeah.
And it's just like this landscape that is just like a land before time. That's just, it's not, it's just beautiful. You should go. You've never been, have you?
No, but it's loading.
Oh, it's loading. I like that. That's a good saying.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Alligator Gorge. That's a beautiful spot as well.
The gorge?
Alligator Gorge.
I haven't been there.
Yeah. There's a good little hike there.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Oh, man. I'm keen.
SA.
I'm keen. I want to go up to, what is all the sandy area, like proper north, like 8 hours north.
Yeah, right.
South Australia. Was it the Simpson
Port-
Desert and stuff?
Oh, okay, yep.
Have you been to Andamuka?
No.
So there's a town off Olympic Dam,
Yeah.
and people went there to go do all the opal like finding,
Yeah.
and then they did that a long time ago, and then there wasn't much law there. Like there wasn't much law enforcement there. So like with that, if you want to just live somewhere, you just claim a piece of land, and then just how they lived. And right now you go there and like there's no proper roads and there's no real boundaries between properties, and then there's all these like dilapidated machinery and all that just collecting dust. It's very dystopian, and it's in South Australia.
I want to go there. That sounds sick.
And they used to have this cafe before COVID called Andamuka Yacht Club. And it's ridiculous that town would have a yacht club because there's nowhere near any water.
Yeah.
But you go there and it's a cafe. And it's like this really ironic thing. But like up after COVID, it just completely closed down. I went there as part of a law subject in law school as part of a property law, like an elective thing. So you go out there and you identify how property laws have different effects in different parts of Australia, right? Because like, what does it even mean in the middle of Whoop Whoop to claim something as your land and something as not?
Yeah.
Whereas like here you've got neighbors and you've got participation of the society that actually determines where's your property and where's my property. But that kind of starts to dissolve as you go further and further and further away from metropolitan areas. So that was something that we observed. We went to the Olympic Dam and we identified like the relation between the indigenous Australians and the, you know, and the mining company, and then how that impacts, you know, the land rights. Can we all dig a hole in our land and just start selling stuff out of it?
I mean, officially you're not meant to, but you could.
Yeah, I mean, we just looked at how those agreements have occurred to then privatize or privately loan a government land to be able to sell the profits of the land. And so that was something really interesting. And I recently had the privilege to like sort of follow those footsteps, and then drove up to all the way
Getting
to
into mining now.
No. To drive just to sort of see what that. Just to visit these towns again, and drove all the way up to Uluru and back. It was really cool.
That is cool.
And you know what? You see the entire world between here and Uluru and back. You see like you know, Adelaide, which is a bit of a town. Then you go to like the desert of Australia, and there are parts of the terrain that looks like you're on Mars, right? Which is crazy. And then you get Uluru, which is super unique. And then you get these like gorges with water in them. You can go swimming in it, and it looks like you're in like Croatia or something. And then you go to like I went through Ceduna. Ceduna has these massive sand dunes that looks like you're in like in the Saharan or the Middle Eastern deserts, right? And then there's like this blue lake, which is like super blue with the salt content. And then I went to the pink and blue lake as well,
That'd be
which
the
is super
sulfur
unique.
content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I swam in it anyway.
That's cool.
Yeah. And like you just see like, and then you get these really mountainous regions that's just like, is this even Australia? Like, it's crazy. And you look at, you know, cities like Adelaide, you know, Australia is just so diverse with so many different landscapes and terrain. You know, Adelaide has like, you go to the hills and it looks like, you know, it's quite alpine, some areas, you know what I mean?
Yes, definitely.
And then you go to like,
especially go like Mount Gambier way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's like the sinkholes there, which is like, I don't know, does that remind you of a little bit of Africa? Some parts of, and then it's just like, it's just crazy. Like,
Second Valley.
Second Valley.
I walked up that big hill.
Yeah. And that big cliff as well.
Is it?
Yeah. Then those cutting cliffs. I was, on Monday, I was at the 12 Apostles, almost cried. It was so beautiful.
It is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Even though there's not 12 anymore.
8.
Yeah.
Now. And then like, you know, the Great Ocean Road, it's just unbelievable, right?
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Yeah. And then like another place I really want to go to is Tasmania.
Yeah, I've heard such good things about Tasmania.
Tasmania is basically the southern hemisphere of like Scandinavia. Like it's so beautiful, and like all these trees and these alpine features, right? It's unbelievable, right? You've got everything in Australia. And then you go to like places like, you know, Queensland.
Yeah.
And then it's like tropical, like Bali type vibes.
Yep.
And like you got
all the Daintree forest and all that.
Yeah, and then you've got like Exmouth and Ningaloo through Western Australia, you know, Broome, all that area. It's just like very rich marine life there as well.
Yeah.
You get the whole you know.
You make me want to buy a big old bus and go around.
Me too, man.
I feel like it'd be such a good thing to do.
My goal would be start in Darwin, rent a car, start in Darwin, and then as you go drive down from Darwin to Alice, there's all these like hot springs there. So that's a bit New Zealand like, right? And then you can just dive in these, you know, creeks and pools. And
come a little closer to the mic.
Yeah. Or you can go dive in all these like creeks and pools in there. And then You go to Alice Springs, you go through all the gorges to Uluru. Uluru is just beautiful. And then from Uluru, go down to Kubipedi and Olympic Dam and all the way down to Ceduna. From Ceduna, do the Australian Bight. Drive all the way out to Western Australia, but follow the coast.
My friend did that. Oh my God, he raved about it.
Yeah. And then from there, follow the coast up north towards Broome, Exmouth, Ingaloo, all that area there. And then if you go up further up, there's this place where they have a horizontal waterfall. It's basically 2 islands, and then the water gushes past through it into the ocean, and the water breaks because of the current, and it's I forgot the name, but it's called something horizontal waterfall archipelago. So it's like a collection of islands where it causes, and then you get a helicopter ride over that as well, which is just like unbelievable.
That's so cool. That reminds me of something I saw on Instagram.
Yeah.
And it was like this huge, big canyon under the water.
Yeah.
And from the sky, you can see underwater. You can see the underwater waterfall.
Yeah.
And it's just this huge, big waterfall.
Yeah.
This looks like it's descending into the abyss of the world.
Exactly. Yeah. And like we're just so
It's all in
privileged.
Australia.
All in
Well,
Australia.
that wasn't Australia. I think that was like Indonesia or something like that. I think it's a
Okay.
bit northern, like near the equator.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like, there's just so much beauty in this world, isn't
I know,
there?
it's
There's
unbelievable.
We're just so lucky to
So
live on
lucky.
this planet. Like, what a good planet.
Exactly.
We're like we
Yeah.
could be on a fucking fireball. And we wouldn't be there for long, clearly.
No.
But there's no other good planets. We're so lucky to be here.
Yeah.
Exactly, man. And I think it's just a landmass thing as well. We Australia covers over many latitudes, and many longitudes. And
Yeah,
I think
there's
that's why,
so much.
that's why I think there's so much diversity and so much to see here, which is great. I never knew I was such an ambassador for Australia.
Did you know we have like a 5-kilometer deep canyon on the southern side of Tasmania?
Didn't know that. No.
Yeah, I found out this the other day from Kristen. She came on the podcast and she does all these books essentially telling people's lives.
Yeah.
She's a cool girl. And she did a book about Reg Sprigg, who was the person that discovered the Icumina fossil, which was this fossil that bridged the gap between like what was on land and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's this big deal fossil. But anyway, he also found this huge canyon that's like 5 kilometers deep and it's huge.
Yeah.
And you can go like see it.
That's unbelievable. Speaking of canyons, this is a really underrated place in Australia, I think, and not many people know it. And it's a place called Kings Canyon. Have you heard of Kings Canyon?
Sounds familiar.
It does sound like I've heard it, but I mean they're pretty.
I visited this on the way to Uluru, and it is like one of the most beautiful canyons I've ever seen. It was so good.
Yeah,
Like
how big is it?
I mean, it's hard to fathom how big it is. There wasn't any measurements that I've seen or studied, but there's this area where they have like these rocks and they look like pancakes that have been stacked on top of each other. And it's just, and they call them something domes, and it's just unbelievable. And then there's this rock that looks like it's just been cut by a giant, and it's all just natural.
Well, there are theories that they were giants.
Yeah.
Have you seen those theories?
No.
Oh, they're pretty wild. So even in the Bible, it like reference giants.
Yeah.
It like reference. They call them the Nephilim
Yep.
race of people, and essentially they're saying that they're like angels that were living on the planet and doing their thing, and that's why the Great Flood happened, is because these fallen angels started like having sex with the humans.
Yeah, right.
And it's kind of like the idea of like the Greek gods, if you will. You had these huge gods, and then they started having sex with all the humans, and it created demigods, and it just created this like mess and plague on the world, essentially. And that's why the story goes that they flooded the earth.
Right. Interesting. So, yeah, check out Kings Canyon. But yeah, that was just something. It just reminded me.
Kings Canyon.
Yeah,
shout
just
out.
reminded me when
We
you
should
talked
go.
about the canyon.
Yeah, 100%.
It's all on the course. Yeah.
Have you been to the Grand Canyon in the US?
I have been to the Grand Canyon. Yeah,
dude, it's wild.
it's
isn't it?
wild.
Like you never, like everybody goes, oh, it's huge. You can't fathom how big it is. But like you're there and you're just in awe because you're like, like what I did is just a reference. There was these big mountains in the distance, right? And I'm like, all right, from here, I'm just going to say they're yay big. And then I'm just going to count how many of these big mountains goes down inside the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
And it was like 100.
That's crazy.
And I'm like,
Whoa.
this is huge. Obviously, the mountains were in a distance and this was closer, so there was that optical change. But nonetheless, It's fucking huge.
It's unbelievable.
Big rock.
It's huge.
I went to the Yosemite National Park, right? And then there's a waterfall there. And I kid you not, the waterfall was so high that the water would start to fall, a full cascade from the top. But halfway down, it would evaporate fully.
What?
And it's a waterfall into nothing.
That's wild. That is so cool.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
You been to Niagara Falls?
I haven't been to Niagara Falls.
Oh, Niagara Falls, man. I tell you, never go on the USA side. The view is not as good. Always go on the Canada side because you're literally right next to the waterfall. Whereas the other one, the USA side, you're like looking up at it. It's not as cool. But the wild thing is you're seeing this like huge body of water rush right past you. And you're like, if I even like dipped a toe in there, like it would just take me along.
Yeah.
And there's a few people that actually have survived falling off, funnily enough. I think there's about 5 in the history. And one of them was like a baby.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like a little kid.
Yeah.
This was basically my conversation, like almost everywhere I went. I just came from a really long trip, and everywhere I go to meet people, and I love meeting people. We just talk about where we have been and just talk about the reviews of the places, right? And you just come to realize how many places we live without seeing.
Oh, so much.
Like a lot of people have come and gone, and they haven't even seen like 0.00001% of the world. And yet we somehow find satisfaction in a job in a house. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, but you also look back in time and like before the modern age of travel.
Yeah.
And like, boom, your ability of seeing the world just is so small.
Yeah.
Now it's like we're in this, I think we were in the golden age before COVID of travel. And now we're having a bit of a recession of that because things are expensive.
Yeah.
But like, we're still in a golden age in the big scheme of like civilization building.
Yeah.
Dude, we can go see the other side of the world in a minute.
Yeah.
You know, like it's wild. It's crazy. Then even AI and all that and these virtual reality fields, like just being able to actually experience all these parts of the world without even going there. It's just such a mind-boggling thing to have as a tool or a resource. Not as good as being there in person, might I add. But nonetheless, we're in a good place.
We're in a really good place.
And thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Watch Your Voyage. Actually, is there anything you'd like to say before we sign out?
Yeah. Come and subscribe to Watch Your Voyage because it's obviously a good podcast that endeavors to bring out some light into this world. So
that's what we're here to do.
Make sure you go like, share, and subscribe.
Where can we find you?
Me?
Yeah, where can we find all your stuff?
You can find me on TikTok, and from TikTok, you will be able to find a website on the link.
What's your handle?
In the
bio. Is Dol Kim, my full name.
How do you spell it?
HANDOLKIM, and then you put TT at the end for TikTok. And then on it, you'll be able to find a link in my bio, which has links to all my YouTube channels and my Instagram and all the affiliate links. That makes me money.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate it.
Bless.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Watch Your Voyage. Please like, subscribe, leave a review. It does make a big difference in terms of the algorithms and all that. But just enjoy. Share it with your friends. Much love. Peace.